Landon Ricketts is a character who has left a significant mark within the universe of Red Dead Redemption. Known for his legendary status as a gunslinger during the height of the American West, his reputation was already well established in the tales told during the childhood of John Marston. His life was not only marked by numerous daring encounters and gunfights, but also a mysterious connection to the Blackwater Massacre. In today's video, we will be diving deep into the story and lore of Landon Ricketts, going over both his mysterious past, his connection to the Blackwater job, and why some fans think he would make a perfect RDR3 protagonist. If you enjoy videos like this one, please be sure to subscribe, as 99% of viewers have not done so. I appreciate your support. Now let's dive into the life of Landon Ricketts. Ricketts was born 1861, making him 2 years older than Arthur. Although the exact location of his birthplace and a lot of his early life details remain unknown, we know that Landon went on to be a famed gunslinger during the American West's prime. His exploits and duels were well known in John Marston's youth.
Now, who are you?
No one interesting. Who are you?
Landon Ricketts. Not a name that means much anymore.
Means a little. You were famous when I was a boy.
Ricketts was so well known in the RDR universe, his name even made it into RDR2 a handful of times.
What the hell was that?
They was gonna rob us. You're dead.
Pair of pants. Think you're Landon Ricketts?
Oh, shut up. I'm gonna run this son of a bitch down.
Who's gonna join me for poker? Probably shouldn't leave my stall unattended like that.
Fella was telling me that gunslinger, Landon Ricketts, has a weakness for poker.
You have a look at that poster on the wall over there.
He's a low-down huckster. He's been poisoning folks with his miracle cure from here to Annesburg. Killed more than Landon Ricketts without even pulling a trigger. Gets some kind of sick satisfaction out of it.
Ricketts reportedly participated in numerous gunfights, including one in 1896 where he defeated the Butcher brothers. Other than that, little to no more details can be found in regards to Landon's early life. However, we do know that at some point he got married. The next place we are able to pinpoint Landon at is in Blackwater in 1899. There is no telling how long he was there. However, we do know that he was present during the infamous Blackwater Massacre and survived as a witness. And he was also involved in another gunfight in Southern California 3 years after the massacre in 1902. Shortly after this time, Ricketts and his wife would move to Mexico in search of a more quiet setting, away from the gunslinger lifestyle. They ended up in Chuparosa, where it seems the search for a calmer setting failed. Landon quickly became a vigilant lawman for the town, as an expert gunman. Sadly, it is around this time that his wife passed away due to unknown circumstances. Later in 1911, John Marston met Ricketts for the second time in Chuparosa. However, they did not recognize each other from the Blackwater job. Landon witnesses John, who again heard the legendary stories of Ricketts, killed 3 bandits who attempted to rob him. Landon then gives John a revolver to replace his cavalman and also helps him reach the 3rd level of Deadeye. John would then accompany Landon on missions, where Ricketts is helping search for someone who may be held captive by Javier. In these missions, John has to help Ricketts rescue hostages and gets caught in a duel over a game of poker. Later in the Chuparosa bar, John tells Ricketts his story and about his time spent with the gang. Soon someone enters the bar seeking Marston and Ricketts' help, explaining that innocent people are being executed without trial. Ricketts and Marston then set out to intercept the wagons transporting the prisoners. They take over the wagons themselves, overcoming the Mexican soldiers attempting to halt them. They successfully make it to the American border, where they are beyond the reach of the army, and they release the prisoners. Needing to continue his pursuit of the gang, Marston exchanges final goodbyes with Ricketts. And finally, the last thing we hear about Landon is in the final issue of Blackwater Ledger in 1914. Which states that he died quietly in his sleep. The paper says that he had returned to the United States sometime in 1911, presumably after freeing the hostages with John. His death occurred only 1 week before the events of the Remember My Family mission. which is the last stranger mission in RDR1. He was also rumored to have been working on a biography at the time of his death. Another odd detail to note is that there are two newspapers that mention Ricketts in the massacre. One being the newspaper that mentions his death, while one newspaper says for his involvement in the massacre, making it sound like Ricketts was involved. Another newspaper claims Ricketts is a survivor of the massacre. With this information in mind, we can begin to dive into the theories about his involvement in the Blackwater job. Our first theory suggests that Ricketts happened to be helping out with law enforcement in the growing town of Blackwater at the time of the massacre. He could have been serving as a bounty hunter or deputy even at the time, which would mean he would have responded to the commotion of the Blackwater job with direct gunfire at the Vanderlinde gang. We know from RDR2 that John was shot and Davy Callender was killed in the massacre. Perhaps chasing the gang on their escape from Blackwater, Ricketts was the one to fire those shots. And after living through the massacre and a later gunfight in Southern California, he decided to move to Mexico to settle down. Another theory suggests that Ricketts was the reason the Blackwater job failed, and not because he was helping law enforcement, but because he was helping Micah, who would later rat on the gang to the Pinkertons. Agent Milton claims that Micah was picked up after Guama. However, many players think that was more of a check-in, and that Micah was betraying the gang way earlier. The gang picked Micah up from Blackwater a few months before the massacre, and during this time, Micah could have become well acquainted with Ricketts, who would also be passing through Blackwater. And with his fake charisma and manipulative behaviors, Micah could have convinced Ricketts to interfere with the Blackwater job to distract the gang, while Micah made it out with the cash. He would then split the money with Ricketts. Or better yet, once the gang followed Blackwater, Ricketts would take all of their money the gang claims they had stashed there in RDR2. This would give Landon a good reason to flee to Mexico, which he claimed he did to live a more quiet life. However, we know his life did not settle down even by 1911 when he met John and was rescuing hostages. However, the fact that Ricketts is portrayed as an honorable gunsman rather than an outlaw makes this theory unlikely. The last theory we have today suggests that Ricketts was not involved with the massacre at all. As mentioned before, John Marston and Landon Ricketts didn't properly meet until 1911. Ricketts' reputation as a known gunslinger would suggest that he would have been at the heart of the action during the massacre, where Marston also was. However, when they meet in Chuparosa, the two do not recognize each other from Blackwater. But due to the fact that it would have been complete chaos in Blackwater at this time, and that in RDR2 the Pinkertons did not even know who John was until after the job, suggests that John kept a low profile and is not enough to prove Ricketts wasn't present for the massacre.
And who are you? Rip Van Winkle.
However, it is important to note that the paper that claimed Ricketts as a survivor was not published until 10 years after the Blackwater job. And with how famous Ricketts was, even having his own cigarette card by 1899, it is hard to believe there was no mention of his involvement in such a notorious incident until much later. This further suggests that perhaps his presence there is just a myth, and perhaps made to gain more notoriety. Furthermore, his exploits might have been exaggerated by novelists and biographers, much like Jim Boy Calloway in RDR2. This could explain the different verbiage in the newspapers we mentioned before. But let us know in the comments what you think actually happened, and how you think Ricketts was involved in Blackwater. Also, do you think Landon Ricketts' full story should in the future the plot of RDR3? We can't wait to hear from you. Anyways, that is all we have for today. Thank you for watching.